Hello, my beautifuls. Today I'm going to be talking about something that's pretty personal and private to me, and that's my orchiectomy. It's also sometimes called an orchidectomy, and in the trans community we often just call it an orchie. But no matter how you say it, what we're talking about is surgical removal of testicles. I just had my orchiectomy 2 days ago. Um, I scheduled it about a month ago, but my orchiectomy story goes back much further than that. When I finally did schedule it, I came onto YouTube to try and find other people who had had this done, and I went on to Reddit to ask about other people who had had this done, and I found all these people who were like really excited, and they were like enthusiastic, and they were finally getting the surgery done. And for me, like I'd never really had much bottom dysphoria, and it was just sort of something I was doing for my own medical needs. And I didn't I felt like maybe I was doing something wrong because all these people were super excited about it, which I guess I get. You know, if you're really excited about it, you're more likely to go online and talk about it. But I think it's important that there also be room for the narrative that for some of us it's just like rudimentary. It's just the next step in our transition, and it's uh, it's like getting an appendix out or something. I've got these little sacks of poison in my body, and I've got to take this medication every single day. And the medication I'm taking, cyproterone, is like killing my liver and giving me these mental health side effects. And the cure for for it is to remove these little sacks of poison. And that's a surgical cure. And once it's done forever. Um, and so for me, it's just like a medical thing, and like I like the way my body looks now, and I think it's coming along really nice, even though it's still swollen and stuff. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just a logical medical decision. For the month leading up to my orchie, I was like really nervous. People would make jokes about their bottom surgery, and it would trigger me because I was so afraid that maybe I was making the wrong choice or doing the wrong thing. Even though I never really wanted kids, when I started my transition 2 years ago, um, I did it through informed consent, and my doctor was like, we've talked about the fact that you don't want kids, so we won't even like consider that, and we'll just start you on hormones once you get your blood work done and stuff. And I think early on in my transition, I made the decision that I eventually wanted to get an orchiectomy and get off as many medications as I can. Um, so, about a year into my transition, I went to my doctor and I said, I'd like to schedule a consult for an orchiectomy, just to know what my options are. So she sent me to a doctor named Dr. Townsend here in Vancouver, and Dr. Townsend did like a psych evaluation, made sure that I was, doing this for the right reason and I was capable of consenting, and she signed off. And then my doctor sent me to another doctor, Dr. Zeidler, who's a really famous trans health provider here in Vancouver. And she signed off, and then I got to go and meet my surgeon. My surgeon's name is Dr. Ryan Patterson, and he works out of UBC Hospital here in Vancouver. And so I went to see him, and he did a quick evaluation, and he said, he gave me some information on the surgery, and he said, wait for my call, and that was last July. And then in January, his office started to call me, and I said, no, I'm not ready yet, call me again later. And they called me again in February, and I said, I'm not ready yet, I've got too much going on in my life, call me later. They called me in March, and I said, not quite yet, I've got this stuff coming up in my life and I can't do it yet. And then they called me in April. I said, okay, let's just get it done. And so they set a surgery date for me, about a month in advance. And that's sort of like when I started to get nervous, and I started to go online, and I found all these videos on YouTube of people that were like super excited. And for me, it was just like, I just want to get off of my testosterone blockers. So about a week before my surgery, I had this sort of revelation that a lot of the anxiety I was facing was just about other people. Like, how will I explain this to other people in a way that makes sense to them? I'd been explaining it as like, well, you know, it's good for me, it gets me off of these medications are really bad for me. But I felt like that really sort of downplayed the gender affirming aspect of it for me as well. You know, I mean, it's not the same as SRS, but for a lot of us, we don't want SRS. I like my genitals just fine. I don't, and the only people who are seeing it are my intimate partners anyway, so it doesn't really, it's not a source of dysphoria for me. So I just sort of made the decision that I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to live my life and just do it for me, and that alleviated a lot of stress for me, I felt. And then having my family come on board as well. My family wasn't very supportive of the idea, and eventually, I don't know what happened, but eventually they came on board. And I have to say, like, if someone you know is doing like a major life-changing surgery, and you don't support them, it really messes with your mind, because you don't know if your doubts are your own or if they're your family's or your lover's doubts being imposed on you. And it makes it really hard for you to make that choice, and it could change your choice one way or the other. I just grabbed a cough candy because my throat is still a little bit sore from the intubation from a couple days ago. So anyway, the day of my surgery, I went into UBC Hospital in the morning. I had my glass of juice that you're supposed to have about an hour before your check-in time. And when I was going through admission, I saw up on the screen like my medical information, and they had my diagnosis up there, and it said gender dysphoria. And I thought that was really weird, because my whole transition has been informed consent and self-directed, and you know, I know I've got gender dysphoria, but I've never seen it up on a screen like that before, and in like a medical context, it just seemed kind of strange to me. So they brought me into the surgical daycare, and they gave me an IV. They gave me one in my hand, and it didn't work out. So they stuck another one in my arm instead. And then they took off my nail polish from my one hand so that they could hook sensors up and not have the sensors be affected by my nail polish. It's an O2 sensor that they put on your finger. And they did my blood pressure, and while I was sitting there waiting for my surgery, one of my friends came in, and she was having the same surgery on the same day. So, and she was really, she was a little bit aggravated because she had not had a good experience with the medical staff there. So I told her to come over, and we hung out for a bit, and we chatted, and we made jokes. And then this other trans girl from the next bed over came over and hung out with us for a little bit. And it was like really cool, because we were all there for the same surgery, and just like 3 girls hanging out waiting for our orchiectomies. It was really awesome. And so then I spoke with with one of the surgical nurses, and I spoke with the resident there that was working with the anesthesiologist, and then I spoke with my surgeon, Ryan Patterson, and they all just sort of told me, you know, what to expect from the anesthesia, and things like that, and how the operation was going to go. And then about 10 minutes later, and this is about 2 hours after I checked in, they got me up, and I grabbed my IV pole, and they walked me into the operating room, and it was really scary in there, because there's these big bright lights. It's like a laboratory, and they told me to get up on the table, and there's these two big discs just like staring at you in your face, and you're thinking, this is happening now, this is really happening. And the doctor, Dr. Patterson, gave the surgical team sort of the brief rundown, who I was, what I was in for, and reminded them of Vancouver Coastal Health's privacy policy. And then they put something into my IV, and they put a mask over my face. And then the next thing I know, I was emerging from a dream, and I was having this dream that I was fighting with TERFs. And I was emerging from this dream, and I said, "Is that it?" And the anesthesiologist said, "Yeah, that's it." And I said, "I was having a dream. I didn't think I'd be having a dream." And he said, "Well, tell me about the dream." And as I was telling him about the dream, I was like forgetting it. It was just like fleeting. So I was very talkative though. And they wheeled me into the recovery area. And I was so talkative. I just wanted to talk everyone's ears off. And they gave me some numbing stuff in my mouth just because I'd been intubated. And they waited to see if I'd get nauseous. I didn't get nauseous. They gave me a lot of pain medications because it felt like I had been kicked in the nuts, and it was getting stronger and stronger. So they gave me like the maximum dose that they could, even though I've got a really high pain threshold. It did hurt quite a bit. And then next they wheeled me into another sort of recovery waiting room. And then my ride came in, and they gave me flowers and put me in a wheelchair and brought me out. And after the surgery, they gave me this bandage. I had this bandage on, and it was like a big cod piece, and it was just covering everything. And I had quite a bit of pain in the first day. I got some pain medication. I took it in the first day, and then I took 2, and I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up, and I didn't feel like I needed it as much, and I wanted to avoid taking it because pain medications like that can mess up your digestive tract, and they can cause constipation and stuff like that. And I just wanted to make sure that my body was returning to normal. And then later on that night, I was able to go to the bathroom again, and I was able to take off the bandage that evening and finally see how everything looked down there. And I actually kind of like how it's healing up, even though it's still swollen. I think it's going to look really good when it's all done. For me, I'm expecting to be able to continue having sex. In fact, it might even improve my sex life because I was on cyproterone, which is such a strong testosterone blocker. I may end up having a little bit of boost in my energy level and my sex drive after this. I've stopped taking my cyproterone. I'm taking a little bit of finasteride now just because being under general anesthesia can cause hair shedding, and so I kind of want to delay that or not promote that. So I'm taking a little bit of finasteride, but I'm hoping I can give that up in about a month. And yeah, I mean, when I came out of surgery, I was smiling. I was pretty happy. I think I was mostly just happy that it was over. And it is it's a gender affirming procedure. A lot of times when we say gender affirming surgeries, we think in terms of things that are really binary. And I think a lot of people forget that something like an orchiectomy doesn't necessarily have to be like a stepping stone or a compromise. For some of us, it is our bottom surgery. It's a huge step for us. It's an affirmation of our femininity. And I also just wanted to say that it's okay to be unsure and afraid. That doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the wrong thing. People make these videos and they're just like super excited about it. And obviously if you're super excited about it, you're gonna want to share it. You're gonna want to brag, and your voice is gonna be out there. And I think for a lot of us, where it's just something that we're doing, you don't hear that narrative very much. And I think it's really important that people understand that it's okay to be afraid, and it's okay to not be excited. And if you have any questions about my orchiectomy, you feel free to contact me on Twitter. My private messages are always open. Uh, or, find me on Reddit. Um, and hopefully it works out for you like it worked out for me. I think it's going to be a positive thing in my life. And although I say, like, it's super just like procedural, it's super not like it's a big event, but it's not a big event in the way that a lot of people make it out to be. It's just the next step for me. And I think that that's totally fine to have that relationship with your orchiectomy and not be super excited and to be nervous and to have mood swings and to go from being nervous to being excited and then back to being nervous again. Like, that's all part of it for a lot of us, and that's totally normal. Um, so if you're having an orchiectomy, good luck, and I hope it works out for you. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.